Assalamu alaikum and welcome to a new episode of Words of Wellness. My name is Yassir Al-Manawi. I'm a clinical therapist and today we're going to be talking about responsibility. It's a big word, responsibility. It's a big word not only in the word itself but in the way to apply it in our lives. It takes a lot of teaching and a lot of things to become a responsible human being. So what we're going to do is that we're going to read a hadith and then we're going to talk about responsibility and the psychological aspects of responsibility or irresponsibility. And how do we become responsible for ourselves, for society, and for everybody else around us. And we're also going to talk about what does it entail to be a responsible human being. Because a lot of times we ask for things and we don't know how to get them. And we're going to explain that right now. So let's go ahead and read the hadith together and then we'll talk about them. Responsibility. From Umar radiallahu anhu, who said that Allah's Messenger sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, each of you is a guardian and is responsible for those whom he is in charge of. So the ruler is a guardian and is responsible for the subjects. A man is a guardian and is responsible for his family and under his care, or everybody under his care. A woman is a guardian and she is responsible for her husband, her home, and responsible for those under her care. A servant is a guardian of his master, his wealth, and is responsible for which he is entrusted with. And a man is the guardian of his father's wealth and is responsible for what is under his care. So each one of you is a guardian and is responsible for what is entrusted, for what he is entrusted with. Let's take a look at this. That means responsibility is all-inclusive. I cannot really take responsibility and divide it into little pieces. I can't go to you or go to anybody and will say, well, you're responsible at work, but you're not responsible at home. Or the opposite could be true. You're responsible at home and cannot be responsible at work. You're responsible in this area and not responsible in that area. Why? Simple. Responsibility cannot be divided into pieces. Responsibility is a personality trait. You can be responsible or irresponsible. A person who, for instance, go out and gamble or get drunk, is he responsible? Well, in his view, he could come back and say, well, I'm responsible at home, but I do this in my free time. Well, I go back and I tell him, well, how much money do you spend on this? How much money do you lose? Do you really take care of your family? Shouldn't you have spent some time with your family, your children, or whoever is are entrusted of you? So let's see. Responsibility is a word that has response and ability. So it's actually two words. If I explain response and ability, it will be the ability to respond to something that's happening outside of my life. How do I become able to respond for things? I become able to respond for things if my emotions are straight, if my body is straight, if my mind is straight. Otherwise, I will not be able to be responsible. So let's tie this up with other things such as values. Values teaches us to be responsible. I'll tell you why. I think I remember in another episode we talked about values, and if we take them back to our ancestors, they actually are tied up to spirituality. So if somebody comes to me and we take the responsibility, first I'm responsible, or anybody is responsible to their spiritual life. That means their relationship between themselves and God. Then they are responsible to themselves. Why? Because they have to help themselves. Then they are responsible to their families. When I say their families, I mean their children, their wives, the parents, so the whole immediate families. Then they are responsible for their work. Then they are responsible for their friends. Then they are responsible for the society. So there is a chain. It's almost like a chain of command. Responsibility comes from one to the other, from one to the other, and from one to the other. I can't come first and tell you, well, I can leave my family alone, but I'll be responsible for my friends. It doesn't work like that. Why? Because I didn't take care of my house. I need to take care of my house first. And the first thing for my house is who? Me. I am the first thing that I'm responsible for in my house. Why? Because if I am not in check, and if I'm not straight, how can I be responsible for somebody else? So everything starts with who? With me, right here. It doesn't mean selfishness. It doesn't mean that I'm a selfish person. On the contrary, it means that I help myself to help others. And that's the whole concept that I'm trying to explain. I help myself, I'm responsible towards myself, so I can be responsible towards others. Let's see. Responsibility. A lot of people talk about, I'm going to tie this up to another thing, which is freedom. A lot of people talk about freedom. I want to be free. I want to do whatever I want to do. I don't want to have any controls. Well, with freedom, there is a huge element of responsibility. Freedom from your family, you become responsible. I'm talking about teenagers when they become to move out of their house and work and attack life and stuff like that. They have to be responsible. If they misunderstood freedom, or if they are not responsible, so there is a misunderstanding for freedom. With freedom, you have to be responsible. And to be responsible, it's something that's taught and instilled in each child in their childhood. It's something that I could tie it up to values. They have to have the value of responsibility. How do we do that? We talked about this in different episodes too. And as I said before, since we talk about the human psyche, you're going to find out that everything is connected. You're going to find out that one issue is connected to the other issue. It's almost like a circle. And to be complete, you have to complete the circle. I cannot take one aspect and leave the other. I can take all of them. But I do not work on all of them at the same time. I work on one and I put it away, and then I work on one and I put it away, and I can go back and work on another one and I put it away. So I hope that this episode was helpful to you, and we'll see you again in another episode. Assalamu alaikum.